Hi, this is Dana, and on this channel I speak about spiritual warfare. I have another channel on which I speak about astrology, and a Facebook page on which I wrote prophetic writings, which you find in the description box below. Any other channels and accounts are not mine, are illegal, stolen intellectual property or stolen identity. Now, in this video, God has guided me to speak about the art of breaking bondage. Because this is not so obvious, and it's very sophisticated. It's a very personal work that you do with God. And I draw attention particularly to those who are breaking bondage for others, for their lineage, either your parents or your grandparents or your children or whatever. Because what happens, one of the issues that is important to know is that the bondage you are breaking has been created and developed throughout an entire lifetime of somebody else or of yourself in a different incarnation. It depends on situation from case to case, yeah? But the point is, you have one life now in which you are breaking multiple bondages if you have been chosen to do this. And each of these bondages developed throughout a full entire life of somebody else. Now, you don't have the same time available to you to achieve this, okay? So for this reason, you must work with the divine realm in order for them to guide you, and they will compress that experience to a very short period of time as compared to how long it took for that bondage to be created and developed and so on. Okay. Now, at the time when somebody is chosen to do the bondage breaking for somebody else, that means that individual who was involved in that bondage or against whom that bondage was created already has been tested multiple times and proved that is not willing to break that bondage. Hence, at this point in time when it gets to you, you must know that those dark forces which are involved in the creation of that bondage are pretty strong, because they had time to feed from that individual in multiple lifetimes. So the patterns are pretty strong. The forces are pretty strong. So when it comes to you, it's not an easy experience. Okay. So for this reason, you have a number of things, and I will list here some ideas which came to my mind just now when God told me the topic that I need to talk about. But most probably I will return to it, because there's so much that is impossible to comprise everything in one video. So one important thing that you must note in your bondage breaking is that there is a process of metamorphosis of those forces, which allows you to break that bondage at a particular time. And this is under evaluation and decision by the divine realm. When the divine realm decides that it is time for you to do this, they will do an activation of that embodiment on you, so you can actually go ahead and do it. But it will not be explained to you in these words. Everything that I'm sharing, actually, I'm sharing with other people, because sort of I learned the hard way. So it would have been nice if I would have had somebody to warn me about these things before, but I didn't. So I figured, okay, now I'm going to do this so others will have it easier, having some sort of guidance in my videos, which will help them identify what it means, what's going on to them, right? So you have a metamorphosis of forces. The divine realm will decide when it's time for you to break that bondage, or it could be a surprise attack when these people, this bondage will be brought to you by your enemies, and then God will do an instant activation of that embodiment on you, so you can actually start breaking that bondage. You will have in that embodiment, in that activation, you will have new gifts activated on you. But nobody comes and tells you about it. So you'll have to be a very good observer of what is going on in your life, of yourself, of your own energy, so you can detect these situations. Ideally, you have a very close dialogue with the divine realm, so you can actually understand this. Because even if they cannot say to you out loud what is going on, they will give you hints in which they show you, from now you have this gift, from now you have this power, from now you're facing this force that you need to defeat, and so on. Yeah. So this is important. So the metamorphosis of the forces, it doesn't depend on you. It's not your decision to make. It's a process outside of you, and you must adapt to it. People will try, those who create bondages will try to manipulate this timeline of metamorphosis of forces and drag you into a situation where you wouldn't be prepared. This is why it's called surprise attack. To create the attack before you get to actually learn about your gifts, learn about the situation, what is the bondage you need to break, and so on. Okay, so this is why it's called surprise attack. Then one thing that you have to do throughout your bondage breaking is to expose their actions, the bondage creation, the lies they say about you, the lies they have said in order to justify the darkness they sent to you. Because I explained in other videos, what they do a lot of ritualic work, they do a lot of sacrifice rituals and so on, and they send specific type of forces to you according to whatever the bondage is. But in order to do that, they must do a petition, they must do enchantments, they must do, how you call this, conjuring specific forces or creating specific forces. But for all of this, they must, even if it's not true, they must do justification. They say, this person has done this harm, so we decided to punish him by doing this. Even if it's a lie, this is the ritual for invoking and using forces. You must justify. Many times, when you talk about bondage, those justifications are lies. Okay? When it's true what they say, that is a karmic relation. That's a different thing. That means that if they say something that is true, or sometimes they use some small truth that you have said something which upset them or insulted them or something, but they blow it out of proportion, because it's not justified for everything in your life that we invoke dark forces and you send them upon others and so on. Anyhow, the point is, you have to expose the lies and everything they do against you in order to create that bondage. You cannot break the bondage unless you expose what they have done to create the bondage and expose the truth. And here it's very important to understand something. You must understand that most times you do not have the same time available for you to allow that bondage to develop, because you're just breaking that bondage among others. So God will guide you. This is a very tricky situation. You must follow very closely the divine logic and guidance in this, because it has nothing to do with your human logic. So God will guide you to do certain things which will expose them earlier than they would normally. Okay? Why? Because you cannot live your entire life in order for them to expose themselves. So you must rush the process. The divine realm wants you to rush the process, because you're not supposed to leave the bondage, because it's not your bondage. It's somebody else's from lineage. You're supposed to break it. So then it has to develop on fast forward so you can move on. You cannot stay stuck in that all your life. This is not the entire purpose why you came here. You have your own purpose, but you're breaking bondage for your lineage, because that bondage from previous generations is blocking your path in achieving your purpose. People must understand this. Maybe I wasn't clear so far. Nobody came on earth only to break bondages for others. Nobody is the stupid in the lineage who's breaking bondages for individuals who refuse to do it. No, you come here with your own purpose, with your own identity, but you break a bondage on the lineage which is precluding you to achieve your purpose. And is precluding you in different ways. Either is blocking your path, or you have specific gifts which have been claimed through that individual who refused to fight, or simply there's too much darkness on you and the entire lineage because of that individual, and is draining all of you, and you're not able to step into your full power, and so on, you must understand that these individuals who work with darkness, they also activate specific timelines and parallel lifetimes of those who betrayed the lineage and worked with them, just in order to send more darkness on you. So this is a two-way street. The divine realm works with you to break the bondage, but also these convents work among themselves in order to use existing bondage to block everybody from that lineage. So it's not, this is a two-way street. Both sides work on the same thing. One side works on creating bondage and activating old bondages on other people so they will block them. And the divine realm works with us in order to break those bondages made on yourself, on somebody else from your lineage. Okay, so when I say you need to work with the divine realm to expose them, I will give you some examples so you'll understand, because this is very hard to understand if somebody doesn't actually tell you, or you don't have a direct dialogue with God. So for example, let's say I have people, I don't know, colleagues or neighbors who have created bondages on me or somebody from my lineage in previous lifetimes by slander, by lies, by stolen identity. Like somebody stole my identity and they did illegal things in my name in order to accuse me of what actually they have done in my name. And I was not. So God will guide you to take specific actions in order to expose what they have done. And this many times could be very tricky. I mean, tricky in the sense that it will not come natural to you, what God is asking you to do. Either that God will ask you, for example, I don't know how to give examples right now that will be very clear to everyone. In many situations, God would say, go talk to that person. Normally, I wouldn't go talk to that person because I don't know her or him, and but God says, just go there. And then I don't understand why, but I have to go, because then after a few months, God reveals to me that individual has created bondage in a previous lifetime on our lineage, on this individual, and he has done the same on you in this lifetime. You just don't know it. Normally, we could allow for the entire life to develop, and down after a few years, you will learn about it. But we don't have time to wait for this. So I asked you to go to his gate to just start a random conversation so you can actually, so I can draw your attention to that individual, because you haven't been paying attention to that individual, and you don't know they're working behind the scenes, a bondage against you. And then if you interact with the individual, then you start sensing, if they send something to you. So you become aware of their energy. So if you're attacked, then you sense that. There are many situations in which God will guide you to do certain things only for this purpose. For example, God will guide you to go it happened to me actually here while breaking bondage. God would guide me when certain individuals were doing harmful things to me. God would guide me, just shut up, play stupid. I said this in a previous video, just play stupid. Because if normally you put them in their place, God explained later on to me, because I was very frustrated. I said, why you told me to shut up? Because look what he did on my property, and look what he did. And God has shown to me, if you would have spoken up, they would have known that you're not a pushover, and they would have hidden their acts better. And we didn't need them to hide them better, because then it would have taken longer time for you to expose them. I needed you to shut up, so they will think they can do whatever, because then they start doing foolish things, thinking that you're too stupid to fight back. And this way we rush the process, and I will tell you when you can speak up. And indeed, after a number of years, actually, God said, now you can go speak up, because he has done this murder on our lineage previously, okay? And I was waiting for them to feel comfortable enough in harming you to do this action again. And then you can go ahead and say whatever you have to say, and you can start fighting for yourself. But I didn't need for them to hide this very well. I needed them to feel comfortable enough and to look down on you enough, so they would actually expose themselves by doing foolish things, not covering well the crime they do, and so on. You know, so I just gave you this example. I'm not explaining the bondage. I'm just giving you examples so you will understand things that they will say, God will say to you. Now, the bondage breaking, throughout this, you must know that you must pass tests. So there are certain things, failures, and compromises, and mistakes that the individual on whom was created the bondage originally have done. And that differs from case to case. But that is an important, how to say this, an important moment in the bondage creation, because they use that in their arguments to create that bondage, okay? Now, this is a test for you. Let's say, for example, the woman on which was bondage created in my lineage fell in love with a jerk, okay? And she gave him power to decide over certain things, properties and rights and stuff like this. Now, it's a test for me. I will meet the same individual if I break the bondage for that woman. I will meet the same individuals, maybe different embodiment. It doesn't matter. I would meet that prototype, yeah? And there is the bondage of falling in love with that individual. Now, I must pass the test. That means either that you call his bluff immediately, which I have done in many situations, and you refuse to be in a relationship with that individual. Now, if you do that, he will become enraged and will hate you and will come after you, because there's a dark force involved in the relationship which the two of you were supposed to have according to the bondage. But if I refuse the relationship, then that dark force is outrageous, comes after you, you know? So that becomes an open fight already. That means I passed the test of that woman falling in love and giving power to that individual, right? But then I still have to carry on the fight of that open confrontation by now, because I have to send back the dark force which is associated with that connection, which I refused. Or if you don't see it from the beginning, to break it from the beginning, then I might fall in love with that individual, which is not a falling in love. It's mostly a hypnotic connection created through the dark force which is associated to that relation. But I snap out of it because I see the patterns, I see what is going on, and at some point I break off and I say, no, this is wrong for me. Go ahead, go away. You know, the same thing applies like previously. The dark force which was associated to creating that relation, or our coming together, if it doesn't become a relation, will be outraged and will start fighting me because you're already in a spiritual fighting, know it or not. But that is a test you must pass, and it's one important part of the bondage creation which you must break. So these are unbeknownst to you. What God has shown to me, because initially I didn't imagine, he would say it's okay that this developed this way, because this was not meant to be a relationship for you. This was supposed to be a breaking bondage. So you did well because you broke the bondage. You didn't give in to a relation and you rejected and so on. And I was like, but why you told me? Because I asked you if I should accept and to talk to that person or to start a relation with that person? Why you told me yes? And God has shown to me, because this is a bondage breaking which you signed up for. You were supposed to meet that person. He was supposed to pursue you, but you were supposed to break that bondage. And we thought that you have the instruments available to you to break that bondage. This is why we said yes. We couldn't have said no, he's not good for you, because this was a test for you and it was part of the bondage breaking which you were doing, even if you were not aware of doing it. Okay? God many times will trust you, that will let you go through the situation without telling you, because God knows that you can pass that test. Okay? So this is also very important. This is also why you must be a very good observer of yourself and of the people that you come in contact with, and so on. Throughout these passing tests and so, you prove yourself, basically. You stand in your truth. And many times you do it even without the help from the divine realm. There are bondages which I have broken throughout my life. God has shown me while we were both looking back. And he said, this was a bondage breaking, this was a bondage breaking. And I didn't even realize. Like people that would come to me in my workplace and they will try to bribe me or to convince me to participate in something illegal, or many things, or men that were hitting on me and who were married, and I refused them. I said, excuse me, you are a cute guy, but I'm not dating my married men. Just, I'm sorry, go see your family, and I believe this is not acceptable. Because if you would be my husband and will do this, I would not approve of it. So these were all tests which I passed by standing in my truth, without knowing that this was a bondage breaking, that this was a test, and so on, you know? So all of us have gone through some of these situations in which you were tested, and you passed the test without knowing that you're in the middle of a bondage breaking. And with each time when you stood in your light and you walked the path of God, you broke a bondage for yourself or for somebody else. You must know this. Nothing in this lifetime was by accident. You must know this. And if you want to understand more about it, you can always ask the divine realm and your spirit guides from the divine realm to give you to explanation, so you will look back and you will understand who came your way, for what purpose, who sent them, and how was that a bondage breaking. You can also ask, what did I receive after this? Because you're always rewarded after you pass a test. Many times in spiritual realm by some activation of a special gift on you, or some rights which are sent to you in material existence or something. So you can learn about what you have done so far unbeknownst to you, just by being yourself, by staying in your light. This is very important, because by learning all this, you will gain more confidence in breaking bondage. You will understand that you already have done this, but you just didn't know. It becomes very obvious, and you need to actually consciously understand how this works when you were breaking very tough bondages of dealing with very dark forces which come after you. When you have a surprise attack, so the others basically decide that you have been standing in your right for too long, you have been breaking too much of bondage, and you have been passing too many tests, therefore they decide to do a surprise attack on you. So they will stop you, so you will not advance this fast, and so on. So you can learn about this, and it will help you in understanding who you are, and in shaping up your own strategies to deal with this consciously from a point forward. Yeah, so you can do this. Now, part of this is also taking back what was stolen. I said this in previous videos. Whatever was stolen from you or from your lineage is being used to take power and light from the lineage. And that means properties, ranking, promotions, money, recognition, certain gifts, a career in those gifts, developing business in those gifts, and so on, much more. Anything that was ever taken must be taken back. This is part of the bondage breaking. You don't finish bondage breaking unless you take back what was stolen. You're not done with the bondage breaking. Even if you defeated everything and you exposed everything, until you take back all that was stolen. You must know this. So you must focus on that as well. You must deliver karma to the other people. And I explained this. Normally, ideally, God would prefer that people will break bondage together. Namely, you come to each other, you talk about it, and you say, you have done this and this and this against me in this lifetime, in other lifetime, against my lineage, against this. Let's agree that what you have done is wrong. Acknowledge that in a astral letter, and this is how you do the bondage breaking together. And I have succeeded in doing this with 2 individuals in my life. You write down all that was done by you, yeah, and against me, all the bondage which was created, and you denounce it. You say, that was wrong. I do not uphold what was done. I hereby sign that everything should be nullified, and all the divine rights according to the divine will should go to so and so individual, because whatever I stole was not mine, was his, something like this, yeah. And that person needs to sign, and you date the astral letter, and you write the place where you signed it, and that helps in breaking the bondage. That empowers both of you. That individual gains power in fighting the forces which took claim over him, and you also spare all the turmoil which goes in a conflict with that individual. Many times this is not possible because that individual refuses to do so. There are many individuals to whom I actually said out loud, we both had the revelation of what happened before in previous lifetime, and I told that individual, look, it is my understanding after we have learned this, that you have done this and this and this against me. You stole this from me, and you did this and you did this. Let's break this bondage together. And they said no. No, because he was enjoying in this lifetime the benefits of what he stole from me. So he was very conscious that if he agrees to breaking that bondage with me, there will be consequences. Namely, he will have to go through redemption, and some of the material goods which are now present in his life because he stole from me, he will lose that. He refused. Now, you must know that God will take that anyway from that individual by delivering karma. The alternative of that, if they don't want to do it together, if they don't want to break the bondage together, you deliver karma. And basically you deliver karma by claiming justice, judgment, and punishment. And you have 2 dimensions. One, it's when astral and divine realm is punishing them. Basically, it's the tower moments in tarot reading, when basically the divine realm breaks down everything they stole. They strip them of all possessions and everything that they stole. They stole a ranking from you, fame and business. They will lose all of that. They will lose all of that. And it's always up to the divine realm to decide how this is being done. Delivering karma for you, it's claiming justice, judgment, and punishment. Most work is done by your spiritual team from divine realm. And basically it's a payback time for that individual, whereby they lose everything they stole from you. And everything they created on you is being reversed upon them. This is very clear step, I think. It's just that you must know during this time to keep a very good and thorough energy cleanup, because as I said in other videos, they will try to attack you by witchcraft, by spell work, by incantations, and by so on, to force you to give them undeserved forgiveness. Because if you give them forgiveness, they get a grip on you again. Even God will continue to deliver karma to that individual, but that individual will transfer karma to you. So then everything you have done, all your work, will go to waste, because they will get away by feeding on you. So this is very important from a different perspective, to stand in your light and in your power, not to budge and not to give in to fake and uncalled empathy, not fake, God is correcting me, uncalled empathy for individuals who have done wrong on you. And this is a very, individuals who have done wrong on others, and this is very important to end that cycle. So this is a very important step for you in not budging, not negotiating, not accepting, and standing in your decision and allowing the divine realm to actually return the karma. So this will end. Because the next step is to send back the dark forces which work through that individual, because always human level cannot create all this harm unless some dark force is working through them. Now, many times they are the ones who called upon that force to cloak themselves into that force. They sold their soul in order to receive material goods and so on. That was their own decision. Other times, other people have sent that upon them. That's not your problem anymore. You're at the end of the bondage breaking. You give the situation to God. Your only issue at this point in time is to deliver karma, stay back, do not engage with them, do not give them opportunities to feed, don't have uncalled empathy for them, because that gives them strings on you and opportunities to give you, to transfer karma to you instead of them paying. And them paying the karma is the first step in the process of sending those dark forces back and ending the cycle. Okay? So this is mandatory. If he succeeds to transfer his karma to you, that dark force will not end. That dark force will feed from you now. And you didn't finish the bondage breaking, in spite of all the work being done. This is very important step. You must pay a lot of attention, and it's not set in stone how long it's gonna last. It depends on how much. Sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult because they work on your dream state in order to use any kind of opportunity. I'll give you one example. For example, in my dream state, God is showing me constantly. They use my dog Lucky to open me emotionally. So they give me a dream of Lucky being killed, Lucky being in an accident, Lucky being, something very dramatic. And then even in my sleep, I become very anxious. And even if I wake up, sometimes God wakes me up and I can't breathe and so on. So they take that opportunity in order to infiltrate some sort of projection, some sort of incantations, because that's a time, and this is very hard for me to control. No matter how much I control my energy, and this goes for everybody, particularly for those who have children. For example, they can use in your dream state your children against you to open you up emotionally, so they can actually attack you and so on. So this is a process which takes time, sometimes longer than you would expect. It depends on how things are going. The point is, though, each and every single step I described here is critical in bondage breaking. It's critical in bondage breaking. And some of them you will become aware of them, and especially at the end, all this with delivering karma, and with, you must work on yourself. And you must understand that bondage breaking means that you're a spiritual warrior. So you must develop those abilities to control your emotions and to cut all of this that is being sent upon you, to make you feel sorry for them, to make you think that maybe they didn't intend to do this, maybe to find excuses for them and so on. They will work tirelessly on this, and the dark force will help them, because the dark force wants to feed on you continuously. So this is very important. Equally important is the phase in which God is guiding you how to expose themselves. I will give you an example. God showed me, for example, about certain individuals who are now in my neighborhood. And when I met certain individuals from my neighborhood, God told me from the beginning, this is not a good person for you, stay away. But for years, God didn't tell me why. And then when I entered this bondage breaking, he explained to me, for example, in some cases, these individuals made fake reports on you, or made reports on you in order to trigger a certain action against you, in order to bring you down emotionally, and to portray you in the community as a crazy lunatic and things like this. Anyhow, he showed me detailed how this was done, basically against certain individuals from my lineage, to break them down emotionally, to raise entire communities against them, in order to destroy them, to kill them, to sacrifice them, to denigrate them, and so on. And so for this reason, for example, God will ask me to do things which will trigger this individual to, you see, somebody doesn't like me saying this. So God has guided me to do certain things on purpose to trigger these individuals to do this sooner than they would have normally done it, right? So for example, he would guide me, I don't know, to give examples, when normally I would stop my dogs if they bark because somebody provoked them. I will take care to make sure that they don't make noise around, and God would say, just leave them, let them bark. And then he would show, because you see why this neighbor went and made a complaint on you. Now we needed him to expose himself that he's an enemy of yours. Because this is what he has done in previous lifetime, but not about the dogs, but about your family, about your children, about your so-and-so. This lifetime you don't have children. So we needed you to have the dogs so they will have something to complain about in order for you to pass through that bondage creation which existed in previous lifetime against your lineage and so on. So God will guide me to do certain things on purpose. For example, God showed me certain individuals gossiped about me, and I didn't know, as I explained in another videos. Actually, in this lifetime, I didn't even fucking care if they gossip. I didn't know this has a consequence on me. I figured the best thing is to keep them at a distance, not to engage with crazy lunatics which have nothing to do than to gossip about others. But this was part of the bondage. And then God has guided me. I wanted, for example, I'll give you an example. I had the cloth on a fence was ripped off by a dog. And I wanted to change that. And God said, no, don't change it. For a long time, which was very frustrating for me because I couldn't understand. Why not? Why can't I change it? Why can't I do this? And God just wouldn't tell me why. Just don't. And basically, he later on showed me, because you see how he gossiped and created all these lies about you, about the fence and about this and about that. And we needed him to do this because this is how the bondage creation started in a previous lifetime. And if you behave perfectly and they don't find the reason why to gossip and what to do, then this will take longer for them to find the reason. They will gossip at some point. They will create a reason. But it will take longer, and we don't have enough time for this. So I need you to create something which is not usual to you, but will give them something to, some reason to do whatever, because they use that gossip in order to do sacrifice ritual on me, if you can imagine. So by that, God has shown that for a stupid argument which had no importance whatsoever, they actually disproportionately created a whole sacrifice ritual, sending satanic forces over me just because I didn't change the cloth on the fence, which at the end of the day, I could have just leave it like this. You cannot impose what I do in my own courtyard. Maybe this is the income I have and I cannot afford a different cloth on my fence. What you're going to do now? It's not you to decide or to dictate on that. It's not decent to do that anyhow. But God said, I need you to give them something, some reason to pick on you, because if not, then this will take longer. They will create a reason anyhow. But we don't need them to create something which you don't know, because we need to follow their actions so you can actually know what you claim justice against and what they have done and so on. So it's very complicated. You see, I'm going to stop here because it's too long video, but this is in a very short description, the most important issues related to bondage breaking as an art. You cannot do this. You can do this unbeknownst to you for a while, but when you come up to them becoming worried about you advancing too fast, they will create bondages much harder for you to break. And there you must do it consciously, because then you need divine guidance, because this is this involves much darker forces, stronger forces, and you need to actually understand what is going on. So you can make true spiritual fighting, conscious spiritual fighting. And this is the distinction, basically. We actually do spiritual fighting throughout our entire existence, and we pass tests in this regard. But there is a time, if you advance too much, there is a time when this must become a conscious fight. Either that they will do a surprise attack on you, or that simply God wants you to do something more than you have done so far, and wants you to break something a little bit more complicated with darker forces involved, and so on and so on, depending on whatever purpose you have. I'm going to stop here. I know this is going to be helpful for everyone who's going to do bondage breaking. I hope this will help you have a smoother experience than I did. And please don't hesitate to ask any questions. I will be happy to answer according to the experience I have gained so far.